Happy Tuesday and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV, our flagship stations. In addition, as always, also on Comcast, Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. We are on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and on the radio on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. Today we are joined via Facebook Live by the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, and we'd like to thank their entire team for joining us once again on the Oakland County Megacast. And as always, joining me from her home studio is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, I have to start out by extending my thank you to you yesterday for taking over the show at the last minute. I know it wasn't easy, and on top of that, we lost our last guest as well. So thank you. You did a great job having to fill in for a very long time.
Oh, it's fine. It went really well. We had an interesting guest at the end there speaking to the chairperson of the Michigan Democratic Party. A lot going on in that party as they moved to take power on Wednesday in the executive branch federally, and that certainly has a lot of impact here in the state of Michigan and in the local area. So we were able to extend that interview out a little bit, and then we've had a lot going on here lately. So it was pretty easy, pretty seamless finish to the show.
So with that, just so people know, I was sitting here yesterday, and it was a good thing I was actually working from home. And while I'm sitting here, I'm like, do I smell smoke? I think that's smoke. Is that smoke? And my husband wasn't home. So it was like, oh, I can get through the interview. But then it's getting a little stronger. I was like, I better check that out. And so I threw the show back over to you, went running through the house like a crazy woman, trying to figure out where it was coming from, which room, went into the basement, went upstairs. Turned out it was out in our garage. The electrical outlet had caught fire, and thankfully it was contained to just that outlet, but I was afraid that it was in the walls because the smoke was getting heavier. And the smell was very strong by that point in time. So I had to call 911 and get our fire department out here. And so to Chief Lynn and his team over there, they did a great job, as well as the Keiko Harbor Police Department. Officer Cote was actually here before the fire department.
Yeah, a great job by our local Keiko Harbor Police and the Tri-City Fire Department. That, of course, is serviced through the West Bloomfield Fire Department in addressing that issue. And luckily and gratefully, it turned out to not be a major incident, and we were able to have you back here today and in your home studio again with little to no harm done in the process.
So one of the good things, we talk with Chief Lynn quite often here on the show, and I know that they talk about some of the COVID protocols that they're going through, but when you're actually the person on the receiving end, you kind of understand how they operate because they get the information, but then it's immediately, have you or anyone in your family been exposed to COVID within a recent amount of time? Yes, no. And then, from there, they'll decide how they're going to go about. But then they're like, okay, the fire department will be coming over. Are you able to wear a mask while they're there at your home? So it's interesting to be on the back side of that and to experience exactly what they're doing and how that process does, in fact, work. But they were all great, and we're lucky it was contained to just that one outlet. We had an electrician here this morning, and life is back to normal, Tyler.
Well, that is good to hear. No reason for any more worry on that, and it's good news that you and your husband were able to get through that and correct things, and hopefully no more further incidents electrically in that area of your home.
So it was funny because I hadn't called him yet, and we have the Ring camera, and so he's like, oh, what's going on outside my house? Wait, they're walking into my house. So he was a little freaked out, but we had water issues a couple weeks ago, fire yesterday, so we're hoping that we're good for the rest of 2021.
Yeah, you've kind of covered all bases so far, so hopefully that's it.
Hopefully that's it. And now if we could just get COVID-19 behind us, that would be even better yet. But there is a little bit of good news for some of the small businesses right now, Tyler. If we can jump into the headlines, starting the new financial assistance tools are coming into play this week as the latest round of the federal Paycheck Protection Program. It's known as the PPP. The funding is fully opening, and as well, 2 Michigan-based grant programs launch application portals as well. So the PPP's latest funding allows for 284 billion. That's billion with the B, and loans to small businesses across the United States. And the loans could turn into grants. And then starting today, applications opened at 9 o'clock this morning for $55 million in the Michigan Small Business Survival Grant Program, with an additional $3.5 million earmarked for the Michigan Stages Survival Grant Program. That's going to be opening to applicants on Thursday. And the small businesses of those that are fewer than 500 employees, did you know, Tyler, they make up 99.6% of Michigan businesses, and those businesses account for about 1/3 of the state's jobs. So that's just how important these small businesses are to our communities. And sadly, while that does seem like such a large number of money that's being made available to these businesses, we also have to remember there are so many businesses, and the money's not going to go far enough for some of them for them to be able to stay in operation.
Yeah, we've talked previously with business owners and with those in the small business community locally and statewide who've spoken specifically about those $55 million in Michigan Small Business Survival Grant monies, and saying how that's just not simply going to be enough for all these businesses, and what they would be capped at receiving would not be enough for them to really be supported in a survival mode. It's going to be helpful for their businesses, but not necessarily something that could save their business. Maybe just kick the can down the road a couple of weeks, and hopefully that's enough for them to get enough back on their feet that they can stumble through a few more weeks and then maybe be at a point where they are standing normally, although cautiously. But this other money, the PPP loans coming in with even more federal money being available, also very good news, and especially the $284 billion number, also good news, because there's so many businesses, not only in Michigan, but all throughout the U.S., that are looking for these loans that could potentially turn into grants as a means of keeping their business alive, or at least keeping it in a position where it can continue on after the pandemic does finally subside.
Yeah, for some of these business owners, applying for grants has almost become their full-time job. They've had to do it so many times, and a lot of times they run out so fast that many of the businesses aren't even able to, put their name in for the running for some of the grants because of how quickly they're running out. But they are going to be expert grant writers when this is all done. There's a little bit of good news for the state of Michigan when it comes to our coronavirus numbers. Michigan's two-day count of confirmed cases and deaths declined over the weekend, indicating possible progress with vaccinations along with social distancing and the mask wearing. So the state reported 2,843 new cases and just 20 deaths for Sunday and Monday. Of those, 319 cases and 2 deaths were from right here in Oakland County. Meanwhile, the number of people vaccinated against the virus rose to 405,992. That's about 54,503 here in Oakland County. In fact, Oakland County, according to the data that is actually provided right now, we're leading the way when it comes to the number of vaccinations in the state of Michigan. And of course, Southeast Michigan has been the epicenter for the case total and deaths from the virus, although there have been some hot spots elsewhere in the state over the past 10 months. So we are seeing some declines, which is different from what they're seeing in other states throughout the country, including places like California.
Yeah, that's definitely some good news that Michigan has these declining case numbers. We've been trying to get to this point for so long in this most recent surge, and it seemed at first that while cases were dipping after the initial pause was put into place, that they weren't dipping at a very fast rate, and it was going to be several months before we would be at a point where things would be somewhat back to the COVID normal that we saw before this recent surge. But case numbers going down, the percent positive numbers have continued to be going down gradually. Just last week, we were at right around 6%, which is a lot better than the high teens we were at in previous times before. So especially as we're approaching that February 1st date that the governor hopes to then lift some restrictions on businesses such as restaurants. Good news, of course, for that industry as these caseloads are declining.
And so we have to remember there are people connected with these numbers. They're not just numbers, they're not just stats, but you can go ahead and look at all of the numbers for yourself so you can zero in on your area as well. So you can either go to the state of Michigan website, but also Oakland County. And if you put in your zip code, it will tell you exactly how many new cases have been reported within your zip code. So for us here in the Kegel Harbor and Sylvan Lake area, we're combined in that one zip code. So it does give you kind of, a snapshot for you to be able to follow along locally as well. I always like to look at the numbers for myself as well. So I don't know if you remember the video that back at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a video that went viral of a Livonia nurse, Lori Key.
Yes.
She was singing to her fellow healthcare workers during the peak of the pandemic. Incredible voice. So tonight, Key, who works at St. Mary Mercy Hospital, she's going to sing ahead of the inauguration at a special nationwide memorial for people who have died from COVID-19. Key said she's been singing, playing the piano, and writing music her entire life. So being a nurse during COVID-19 has been challenging, but she's made it through with the help of her family, her church, and her fellow nurses. But she will be representing the state of Michigan tonight, singing in front of that national audience. What an honor, but she does have a voice of an angel.
Yeah, she has a great voice, and it is a great honor for her too, as someone that has been somebody that's a great example of the heroism that's been seen throughout the country during this COVID-19 pandemic for those on the front lines. Plus, she has an excellent voice. She's someone that made a video that was early on a very iconic part of this COVID-19 pandemic and how people were getting through the early portions. And so having her be able to be there, someone that is commemorating those that have been lost during this COVID-19 pandemic, is a great special opportunity both for her, for Lori Key, this nurse from Livonia, and also a good way for us to look back and reflect on where we've come so far in this pandemic.
I'll tell you, Tyler, I cannot wait for the day that we can go see live music. I don't know how long it's going to take for people to be able to feel comfortable to go back into a live concert, like at a stadium or a big event. But I miss like live performances, because music is great and it's a good way. It just lifts your soul and it can connect people as well. And while we've seen a lot of these concerts via Zoom and other ways, it just doesn't replace being there live.
Yeah, it's definitely a different experience, and it's something that I think a lot of people are going to be really excited to get back to. All the more reason I think a lot of people are really hoping that we are out of this pandemic, we're through the vaccination process, and at a point where we can reopen things by summer, because that's peak concert season here in the state of Michigan.
So with that, we want to remind everyone, if you want to check out the latest headlines, you can do so. Just go over to Civic Center TV, click on the coronavirus tab at the top of the page, and that's where we do go ahead and list all the latest headlines each and every morning before we come on air here. And along with that too, again, I had mentioned a little bit earlier about being able to check out the data for yourself. Well, we made it easy for you, because at the top of the page is where you'll find direct links to some of those resources, including the CDC, as well as the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and our local municipalities as well. Keep an eye on that CDC website, because this is the last day of the Trump presidency. We will be getting a new director to head up the CDC. So I would expect some of these changes to be coming, and that's going to be a good way for you to keep track on all the changes that have come with this new administration, Tyler.
Yeah, it'll definitely be helpful with all of that. There's a lot of new information that will be oncoming, and anywhere you can get that with easy access and keep up with that information is going to be very helpful.
So with that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, but we do have a full show ahead for you. We'll be speaking with a reporter over at the Hometown Life. You know, it's been a challenging time for so many of the news outlets, not just during the pandemic, but prior. But how has covering the news during the COVID-19 crisis, how has that changed? We'll be speaking with a local reporter. We'll also have on the show Andy Levin, our congressman for the 9th Congressional District. We were hoping to get him last week, but of course, he was called away for the historic vote to impeach Donald Trump for a second time. So we understand that. So we're looking forward to having the conversation with him. And again, this is, it'll be interesting for his take over the past 4 years as the Trump administration winds down and Joe Biden is preparing to be sworn in as our 46th president. We'll also be speaking with the longtime principal over at Dublin Elementary. He's with Walled Lake Consolidated School District, who again is our Facebook partner for the day. So we want to say thank you to them. The American Red Cross will be with us, as well as leadership from De La Salle. We've talked to a lot of school districts throughout this pandemic and educators, but we have not talked with people from some of the private schools and the Catholic schools. So it'll be interesting to get their take on this pandemic and how they have been managing through this crisis. So we have a big show ahead for you on this Tuesday, but first, we're going to take a quick break.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Back to the Oakland County Megacast. So over the last decade, news outlets have seen a decline in their viewership as well as their readership. But due to the pandemic, more and more people are relying on their local news to help guide them through the pandemic. And it doesn't get much more local than Hometown Life. With us on the show is going to be Shelby Tankersley. Great to have you with us, Shelby.
Hi, Ronnie.
How long have you been a reporter?
I graduated with a journalism degree from OU in 2018, and I've been working in the field since then.
So what's it been like for you as someone who is fairly new to the industry during this crisis?
It's definitely interesting. We've all, I think I can speak for our whole staff at Hometown when I say we've all learned a lot. We do a lot of things remotely. Now we don't see people face to face as much, but the pandemic's been a really good learning experience as someone who's newer to the field.
Does it make it easier or harder for you to be able to get a hold of some of the people you're trying to interview?
I think when everyone was at home, during the initial lockdown, it was really easy to get a hold of everybody. You could text everybody, but I wouldn't say that's changed a whole lot.
So with that, you're in the office now, but you said that you rarely go into the office these days?
Yeah, we don't go to our office to meet together very much. We do a lot of stuff like this where we're talking on Zoom or Teams.
How is that for you? I mean, because it could be hard not to be able to get those organic conversations with some of your coworkers.
We all definitely miss each other. We did get to see each other in person once outdoors and distance in the summer. But yeah, we all definitely miss each other and look forward to the day that we can all, work and collaborate in person again.
So Shelby, let's go ahead and talk about your news coverage. What do you mainly focus on?
I'm a community reporter, so I do everything that's not crime, business, or sports. I cover Livonia, Westland, Farmington Hills, and the city of Wayne.
What's been the biggest story for you to cover?
Biggest story, Livonia they elected their first female mayor in 2019. That was a really cool story. The two candidates were both women, so it was really, really cool to cover that story. Lately, I've been covering a superintendent resignation and search for the Farmington Public Schools District, and that's been a big ongoing story.
So with that, because there's a little bit of scandal behind that, the whole story in the Farmington with the school board members as well. How do you think that's taken? Do you want to fill us in first for those who aren't familiar with that story? Fill us in on the story and what's been going on.
So in May of 2019, the district hired Bob Herrera as their new superintendent. He had replaced somebody who had been there for a long time. And in November of last year, so less than 2 years on the job, Bob resigned. He said it was because he was being harassed by a school board member. And when Bob resigned, Pam Green and Terry Johnson, who at the time were the president and vice president of the school board, they both resigned in almost solidarity with him. They both said they really liked him and that they were disappointed that he was leaving because of the school board, and so they decided to step back as well. And because it was an election year, the board has 3 new members. They're also going to have to appoint somebody because of the vacancy left by Pam Green. And they're trying to move forward with a new board. They have a new majority on the board and find a new superintendent. So that's where they're at.
And you're thinking about this, all of this is going down in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis in which the individual schools and the districts are trying to navigate the crisis as well. How do you think this shakeup is going to impact the actual school district and the students?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it was a certain amount of stress for the district. Farmington's one of those communities where about half the community would really like to go back to in-person, and about half the community would rather stay online. So they were going to make people upset no matter what they chose. Their elementary school students actually went back to in-person school for the first time this school year today. So they are moving forward with that. Their middle and high school students are scheduled to go back next week. The interim superintendent that they picked, her name is Bobby Goodrum. Bobby's been with the district since 2007. She's familiar with them. So I think there's some confidence that because she knows them and how they operate, she'll be able to steer the ship until they find a more permanent replacement.
I've had to cover a few of these superintendent searches in the past. It's not an easy process. It's very lengthy as well, but it can also get expensive.
Yeah, they and with Bob's resignation, they will be paying him out through the rest of his contract, and they will be paying him some. So they will likely have a period where they're paying for 2 folks to kind of have that job, if that makes sense. But they're in the process of searching for a search firm right now. On the 26th of this month, they'll be interviewing some candidates who will help them find a superintendent.
So did Bob Herrera, who resigned, did he get any type of severance then?
Yes.
What is that?
If I'm being totally honest, I don't know it off the top of my head.
That's okay. You just wonder, because these are tough budget times
Yeah.
for so many school districts on top of all of this, and now having to pay a superintendent that's not there.
Yeah, and I would say Farmington is it's in Oakland County. Farmington and Farmington Hills are both really nice communities. I would say they're definitely one of the more affluent districts that we cover. But yeah, that's certainly a concern I'm sure they have.
So hometown life, you guys are very hyper local. Mm-hmm. Have you seen an increase in the interest of the stories that you and other members of the team are covering right now?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. I think initially in the spring when we were trying to figure out how to cover the coronavirus pandemic, we found that a lot of people were really interested in, what the coronavirus pandemic means for Livonia or what it means for Birmingham or Farmington Hills. So that was certainly a big push toward local. And I think with everything going on with the school districts, every school district has their own way of attempting to handle this. And so it's definitely important for people to know what's going on for their city.
How does a platform as well work? Because I know that we get like an edition once a week, I think it is, or once every 2 weeks. But I would imagine for most people, it's the online digital format that is most important for people.
Yeah, I would say so. We definitely engage with most of our readers through Facebook or our website. And even now, I speak with a lot of sources and set things up over Facebook Messenger. So yeah, digitally, we definitely find we're connecting with our readers, and that's where the industry's been moving for years anyway. So.
Shelby Tankersley with us here on the Megacast. She's a reporter for Hometown Life. So you're just really kind of getting your feet wet with journalism. What's it been like for you overall?
I like it. One of the things I really love about journalism is that I get to meet people who I would never otherwise encounter in my everyday life. I'm sure you find that too. You definitely get to meet a lot of interesting people, and this can be a stressful or tense profession sometimes, but I find that most people are really kind and interesting to talk to.
So a lot of your reporting has to do with, education or some of our government officials as well. Has it made it easier because of Zoom and so many meetings being on Zoom right now as well?
Certainly, it's really nice to be honest. It's really nice to be able to pause the meeting while it's being streamed on YouTube and take some notes, and then continue to be able to listen. So yeah, there's definitely benefits to it being online.
Shelby, where do you want to go with your future?
That's a great question. I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be right now. But I think this is an important job to do. Telling the truth and getting the truth out there, I think is really important. And certainly for local news, we do a very important service to the community. So I don't see myself leaving journalism anytime soon, I guess.
It's so great to hear because we need young people to go into the field, but there has been a wave of people, let's just say, I think I read one study where reporters and journalists were ranked below car sales people when it came to, confidence from the American people, which, not anything against car salespeople as well, but with so many people, there's this pushback against journalism, and we saw it last week or January 6th in the DC Capitol. With that, what do you think the future for you, because you are just starting out in this industry, how do you defend the media and journalism during this time?
I think the truth isn't always a pleasant thing. I will say I think we find that as much as people don't trust like more national media outlets, there's certainly a little more trust when it comes to local news. But journalism is one of those professions where I don't know anybody who's doing this to try and get rich. We're all doing this because we think the truth is important. And I think it's helpful to remind people that, journalism are people with friends and family. We're people just trying to do our jobs. And I think once a lot of people get to know reporters, they have a bit of a change of heart when it comes to what they think about them. But we're just trying to inform people and get the truth out there, and the truth will set you free. That's what they say, right? So
With that, so the backlash, do you think it's going to start to subside with the change in the presidency?
That's a great question. I think that, I think journalism as an industry certainly has some work to do to kind of regain the trust of some of the folks that it's maybe lost the trust of. But I think the Biden administration might be a little more friendly to the idea of journalism, and journalism that we're not necessarily, comfortable with, as far as whether or not you like the information you're getting from them.
So one of the things as well that I've noticed, so some of the Republicans here in the state of Michigan have been pushing for more transparency in our state government as well as our local governments, trying to push for new bills and procedures allowing, for uplifting of some of the FOIA laws. And FOIA, for those that don't know, is Freedom of Information Act, and it allows for individuals to get some of these documents and the information from our governments, because we've learned so many times that those that we elect to lead our nation, while they may say something in a press conference or for a 12-second soundbite, that's not always the case if you can get the actual documents to show otherwise. And I know some of the Republicans here in the state of Michigan, Representative Berman is one of those pushing for transparency within our government. Where do you stand on that issue? Have you run into any roadblocks in trying to get some of the information that you need as a new reporter, but also as an individual during the COVID-19 crisis? Because a lot of, city employees aren't actually in the offices right now.
I mean, as a reporter, I obviously think FOIA is great. FOIA is a huge tool for me in doing my job. It's something I use relatively often. In our communities, I have not run into any roadblocks as far as FOIA goes. I think a lot of our municipalities are respectful of the fact that we do our work in the public interest. But yeah, I mean, FOIA and people being able to access those documents in a paper trail paints a very clear picture for people. So I think that's great. It's a great tool that we have.
Yeah, and we like to remind people, a lot of times too, FOIA is not just for reporters. People just assume it's a reporter thing, and it really isn't. It's for the general public as well. And so I know lawyers use it a lot of times as well. One thing too, sometime, because I'm a fan of FOIA the FOIAs. So you can put in a FOIA request to request what other people are putting in FOIAs for. It's always an interesting little story on the side for you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Shelby, anything else that you want to touch on before we let you go?
No, I think that's it. We'll definitely be continuing to cover what's going on in Farmington as they figure out their superintendent situation and their school board situation. So.
And with that, Shelby, if people want to read some of your work, where can they find it? And are you on social media as well?
Yeah, I am on Twitter at Shelby Tank. It's Shelby_Tank with 2 Ks. And all of our community reporting is at hometownlife.com. Hometown and life are spelled exactly how you would think they'd be spelled. So that's where we're at.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your time, and good luck to you as well.
Thanks for having me, Ronnie.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast still to get to as the show rolls on. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local.
Shop local.
and especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together. For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/contain-COVID.
Are going to have to realize that it's going to take time. They can't fix all of the problems that have been created by these past 4 years in days. It's going to take time. But what we're going to see very quickly is movement toward that change. And here's the other thing. It's not just on Joe and Kamala. It's not just on Governor Whitmer. It's on all of us. We all have to step up and help sort of tamp down the anger, the vitriol, the rhetoric, and be better citizens of this country. It's on everybody, not just them.
That from yesterday's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. That is the Democratic chairperson, the chairperson of the Michigan Democratic Party, Lavora Barnes, on our show yesterday. And Ronnie, good to talk to her about all that and make sure that we are refocusing our energies politically as we're heading into a new administration, especially in the wake of everything that's happened in the last couple weeks in Michigan and, of course, nationally.
Very much so. It's going to be interesting, I would say, over the first 3 months, how the Biden administration tries to lead this nation going forward, because we have to remember we're also in the middle of a pandemic. And not only that, there are a lot of issues right now with the vaccine and the rollout of the vaccine. And while we do understand that it is not as easy as going in and just flipping the light switch to get things changed, especially when you are dealing with government agencies. But time is something that we don't have as a nation right now as well, because more and more people continue to die from COVID-19. And this is a very real crisis. And that is just one of many things the Biden administration has to try to deal with. I do understand from some of the interviews that we are also hearing immigration is going to be one of the big things he's expected to talk about tomorrow during his inauguration, and creating a pathway to citizenship for some of the people that are currently here in the United States illegally. So there's a lot that is going to change over the next 4 years with the Democratic Party and them leading, not just on the national level, but here in the state of Michigan as well, Tyler.
Yeah, a lot of challenges coming forward and a lot of leadership that is going to be needed to navigate us through into this new administration, and certainly through the current political crisis in the wake of January 6th.
So with that, we are feeling the crunch right here, and it's going to be interesting as well for Governor Whitmer. And one of the things that has been such an underlying message throughout pretty much every press conference I've ever listened from her is the failure from Washington, D.C. when it comes to COVID-19. And it really makes you wonder, how is this narrative and the dialogue going to have to start to change, because Trump is not going to be there any longer, and the Democrats now have control as well. So it's going to be a different platform going forward. And of course, we are in the final hours of the Trump presidency. It's been a presidency like no other. And when Joe Biden is sworn in as the 46th president of the United States, does that mean the two sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, are going to be able to put their differences aside to come together to heal our nation and lead our nation? And joining us now on the Megacast to talk a little bit more, Congressman Andy Levin with the 9th Congressional District. Always great to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Hey, Ronnie, it's so good to see you.
There are so many things that we need to talk about, but if we can just go ahead, do you want to start on the eve of the inauguration and the security and the events going on in DC right now?
Yes, well, I had an experience of it this morning, Ronnie. The Biden inauguration decided that anybody attending the inauguration must get a specific COVID test that they chose. And I thought this was a much bigger symbol than just a COVID test. This is a new person coming into power and saying, you know what? I'm going to set public health standards based on science. I'm going to make it universal for everyone to do one thing, and I'm going to enforce it. And wow. So I had to come back earlier than expected to DC, but I was very happy to do it, because then they know that everybody is safe, and we're kind of looking out for each other, and that's hopefully what the new period will be like. Now, in terms of security, wow, it is intense, Ronnie. I mean, I walked over to the Capitol complex. There's a 8-foot fence with concertina wire surrounding the entire, acres and acres of all the buildings, not just the Capitol building, but all the buildings. And I went in, and there are thousands of National Guard troops all around the perimeter, all inside, even walking around outside. And after I took my test, I got a chance to, talk to some of them. And the gate I left out of, I said, well, where are you all from? And they said, Delaware, which of course is where the president-elect is from. And I said, wow, this must be kind of a proud moment for you Delawareans, or whatever you call yourself. And they said it is, and it was genuine. This is America, Ronnie. This is our peaceful transfer of power. And it's such a mix of emotions, because it's so sad that it has to be so militarized. But on the other hand, here are all these young people saying, you know what, no matter what, we are going to secure this process, and we are going to have our peaceful transfer of power, even if it's been highly imperfect in the run-up to it.
Yeah, but when we're talking about security, you're going to be there tomorrow, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
With that, a couple of questions. So there are concerns that some members of the Guard, or even some members of the law enforcement community, could be a threat to the security for the inauguration tomorrow. How worried are you right now?
Well, I have been worried, and we raised a lot of alarms since January 6th. We asked a lot of specific questions about vetting of security personnel, about vetting of the guests of my colleagues. I mean, Ronnie, some of my Republican colleagues say that the election was stolen, and they believe in QAnon crazy conspiracy theories, and they say they want to take their guns around everywhere, so and there are investigations going on about whether some of them collaborated with the insurrectionists. So we had a lot of questions, but I feel quite confident that all the Secret Service and the U.S. Capitol Police and the police of Washington, D.C., the Metropolitan Police, and the National Guard and all of these forces have come together and are working together to secure the situation. And, I hope it's going to be very, very safe tomorrow.
One thing I was surprised when we all watched the events unfold January 6th, you were there, you were in the middle of it, but prior to January 6th, did elected leaders practice any type of drills for any type of situations or security breaches prior to January 6th?
Well, yes, we did. Yes and no. I mean, in a way, all of our offices have these kind of gas masks in them. We have designated security coordinators in every member's office. Our staff is trained. We are trained. We have an alert system. I get texts and emails on a regular basis that this or that building within the Capitol complex has been evacuated, what to do. So it's not uncommon. That said, the level of failure of security on January 6th is mind-boggling. I mean, we had every reason to know that armed people with intent to disrupt the process of our democracy were headed our way. And as you know, some heads have already rolled. I mean, the sergeant of arms of both the House and the Senate are gone. The Capitol Police Chief's gone. But we need to look at this top to bottom. And I think, Ronnie, we need to change the way the Capitol Police are overseen. I didn't know anything about this before. I'm just going to tell you that, no, it's not Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell who, are the boss of it. There's this board, a police oversight board, which seems very bureaucratic and cumbersome. And we're going to have to look at the oversight of the Capitol Police, the management of the Capitol Police, the whole sergeant at arms structure in the House and the Senate, and make sure nothing like this can ever happen again. Because as horrifying as it was, it could have been a lot worse because people were coming with the intent of kidnapping and killing members of Congress, even the Vice President of the United States.
It's still unbelievable that this even unfolded. Representative Andy Levin with us here on the Megacast. But again, I think about, all the way back to elementary school. We've done tornado drills, and following 9/11, there were, security drills and mass shootings in schools. So we've done all of these safety drills. It seems like none of that, there were no procedures such as those put in place for members on Capitol Hill at all.
Well, I don't really, with all due respect, may I disagree with you a little bit? Mm-hmm. Because, so let's think of a tornado drill, right? A tornado drill is, if a tornado happens, what do we do? And how do we, we go under our desk or we go to the basement or whatever of the school, or I remember, the gym, whatever it was, depending on which school you're in. So we actually, that kind of thing happened and it worked, right? So I was in my office in the Cannon building. Capitol Police came and knocked on our door. And only my chief of staff and I were there because I don't have people working in large numbers in the office during COVID, right? And the police said, let's go right now. We're evacuating this building. And they evacuated every office in Cannon very quickly. And we all went over to Longworth, a different office building. And we stayed there. And they evacuated people out of the chamber of the House and the gallery. So the little disagreement I'm saying is the issue isn't the tornado warning. I mean, the drill, it's the tornado. It's the weather forecast. It's the preparation for the tornado. It's like in a hurricane, why didn't they evacuate the city before the hurricane came in? They knew a hurricane was coming. So the failure was in the intelligence, the preparation for preventing the little drills that we do when a shooter happens, when an emergency happens. We did evacuate, we did move around. Of course, there was a huge failure of most of my Republican colleagues to follow public health. You know, in the one place where a large number of people had to all shelter in place together, the Ways and Means hearing room in the Longworth building, people refused to wear masks, and we had a super spreader event right in the house. And like 10 people have gotten COVID from that. So that's a different matter. So anyway, yeah, I think it's the tornado warning. It's the fortification of the city for the tornado, because the little emergency procedures we do in the event of an emergency sort of happened and saved lives, really.
So we're in the final hours of the Trump presidency. Your thoughts going into the Biden time period?
Well, you know, Ronnie, I was not someone who, you know, originally supported Joe Biden. It'd be easy for me not to say something like that, right? Because I'm so supporting him now. But the reason I say that, for one thing, we all have to constantly be humble and you know, realize that we did different things, right? But so I have been so amazed how Joe Biden has turned out to be the perfect person for this moment. He is the exact antidote to Donald Trump. He's devoted his whole life to public service. At a moment that calls for empathy and making policy in a way to lift people up and support them, here's a guy who suffered so much in his personal life. Losses that thankfully most of us can't even imagine. Losing your wife and young child, losing your son to cancer, you know, all these personal tragedies he's had. And I think he is somebody who really relates to people, feels their pain, and is going to lead us out of this pandemic and out of this economic disaster that's accompanied it. And so I'm very, very hopeful about the Biden era, and I support the president-elect and the vice president-elect 100%, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they succeed in, you know, this most difficult time, really, of any new presidency in, I'd say, since FDR anyway.
So, you know, we've been able to talk with numerous elected leaders, and I've talked to them, some of them at great lengths behind the scenes as well. And we know a lot of people have been jumping out of politics because they felt like things were so divisive right now in DC. It was hard to get any work done. Is that going to come to an end? Are the two sides going to be able to disagree but come to some type of compromise on some of these important issues facing our nation?
Well, I want to emphasize, Ronnie, first of all, that while I really try to be bipartisan and I work with Republican colleagues like on virtually every bill, if you honestly look at American history and who the greatest presidents are considered to be and where we made huge strides, it wasn't about partisanship or bipartisanship. FDR had, you know, complete control of the House and the Senate, and he made many of the laws that we consider the basic building blocks of American democracy and of our economy. You know, and the same thing with LBJ's work, and the same, you know, the same thing with President Lincoln, really. So you cannot get to healing without truth, and you can't get to unity without healing. So I'm not for like superficial notions of let's all sing Kumbaya and come together. Like Ronnie, just imagine we were attacked, people tried to kill us. We went back into the chamber of the House amidst broken glass and freshly washed up blood of someone who'd been killed while she tried to break into the Capitol. And 100+ of my Republican colleagues still voted to nullify the votes of millions of Americans in Arizona and Pennsylvania. And they wanted to nullify votes in Georgia, Michigan, Nevada too. They couldn't even get one senator to go along, you know, to propose that. Even though 60 court cases had occurred, and they hadn't succeeded even getting past first base in 1 out of 60 court cases. There's no evidence that there was a problem with this election. It's the big lie. And so I think we need to, the Republican Party within itself is going to have to decide whether it's going to be a party based on facts and truth or conspiracy theories. And I reach my hand out. I want to work with my Republican colleagues. We can't have a healthy democracy unless we have 2 or more parties, that take different positions on issues. So it's really important. But I think right now, we have to support President Biden, as he'll be tomorrow, in saving the country from the pandemic, rebuilding the economy and all that, and do it as bipartisan as we can. But at the same time, we have to hold Donald Trump accountable for fomenting an insurrection in our Capitol. And there are investigations ongoing about whether any of my colleagues assisted with that. And if they did, they need to be held accountable too. And there's no getting to reconciliation without, truth. So.
And so with that, because we do know that the House has voted to impeach Donald Trump for a second time. Yes. History was made, but yet now it goes to the Senate. He's going to be out of office in just a matter of hours.
Right.
Why do the Senate trial?
Well, because there are a couple reasons. One is that the way impeachment is set up, it's to deal with high crimes and misdemeanors. You need to be held accountable just as much if you do something that rises to that standard in the last hour in your office as you do in the first hour. I mean, there's just, accountability. And if you're a parent, you need, without limits, you're not going to be successful as a parent. But the second reason is that one of the consequences of impeachment is that we can vote to bar someone from holding office in the future. And I think that Donald J. Trump certainly should be barred from holding office, and that's about the future. And so that's appropriate. Also, if you look at the history of impeachments, not just of presidents, but of other, like judges and other federal officers, people have been impeached after or tried after they left office. So I think it's historically appropriate, and it's just necessary, to hold him personally accountable and for the health of our democracy. I mean, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, we came within a few inches of losing the core ideas of our democracy, that the Congress would ratify the votes of the Electoral College and have a peaceful transfer of power, as George Washington initiated in the very earliest days. If everybody's, seen Hamilton, he calls Alexander Hamilton in and he says, "You got to write a speech. I'm on the way out." And Alexander Hamilton's like, "No, we can't live without you." And he's like, "Dude, we're not for kings, remember? We're not for that. What we're about is like you serve your country and then you pass it on, even if it's to somebody that disagrees with you." Ronnie, that is the most fundamental thing in our democracy. And we almost lost it 2 weeks ago. And that was a world historical event. You and I are sitting here talking, but we just lived through not just an event in American history, but because of the role America plays in the world, a world historical event about the life of democracy amongst the people of the world. We have an obligation to America and to democracy around the world to say, nope, we realize that was far out of bounds. We're going to protect the sanctity of people's votes and of a peaceful transfer of power, and make clear that this can never happen again.
It is sobering when you think that democracy was attacked January 6th. With that, before we let you go, I know that you're extremely busy. There are so many things I want to ask you, but I want to be respectful of your time as well. Anything that you want to share with the public and the viewers before we let you go?
Well, Ronnie, I do think it's appropriate to end by pivoting to optimism. How about some of that?
We like that. We like that.
I am so excited about the 117th Congress and about this new period. I have a whole raft of legislation that I want to pass. I'm reintroducing my Safe Workers Act with my Republican colleague Brian Fitzpatrick so that workers can have elections on whether they want to form a union or not electronically instead of unsafely in person during the pandemic. And anything from something like Small and Practical like that to my Electric Vehicle Freedom Act to put high-speed chargers throughout the whole national highway system and create many thousands of good union electrician jobs and utility worker jobs so that everybody can feel like, yeah, I could buy an EV and go visit grandma in Omaha, Nebraska and be able to get there and back. That helps our auto industry. It creates jobs in and of itself. So this period, I think, is going to be, I hope and pray, a really fertile period for reviving our economy, dealing with this pandemic, getting all those vaccines out there, helping everybody get vaccinated much more quickly, and then rebuilding our economy in a way that's really inclusive and green and does our kids proud and, really sets us on a new course. And I think we'll be able to achieve more unity when working people in this country see the American dream come into focus for them again. And they don't, when you have a majority of Americans living paycheck to paycheck and young people don't even feel they can afford to get married, or people can't afford to go to college, or they have so much debt afterwards, we've got to fix the basic economic problems so that people have health care, people have a good job, they make enough, and they're not freaking out every week about whether they can pay their bills. And, so imagine a president-elect who says, we're going to pass $15 an hour right away, so that it doesn't mean we'll get to $15 an hour instantly, but we'll set a rising minimum wage that'll get to $15 an hour in several years. We got to lift up the working people of this country if we want to have a healthier democracy. And I'm excited because I think we're going to do it. So.
Well, with that, we'll go ahead and let you get to work. And we so appreciate your time. And again, we're so happy that you're okay and members of your staff as well. It was a traumatic event, what you witnessed and what happened there in DC on January 6th. And let's hope that things go smoothly over the next few weeks as well.
Thanks, Ronnie. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the second hour.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Parks COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue. But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Wear a mask.
The ball's in your court, Michigan.
This for the second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Just a quick reminder, you can always catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, tune us in, channel 15. If you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And we want to say thank you to the Walled Lake Consolidated School District for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. So thank you to them. And with that, for more than 30 years, our next guest dedicated his life to educating kids in the Walled Lake School District. He's touched so many lives and helped shape the futures of countless students. But now the principal of Dublin Elementary, Jeff Drewno, is taking on a new challenge: retirement. Joining us now on the Megacast is the former principal. So you're only a few days into retirement, so I'm sure things are going pretty well right now.
So far, so good. It's amazing how you start to learn or try to learn new routines and just a new way of life. It's been fantastic so far. So
before we talk about your future, let's talk about your past. How did you even get into education back in the day?
Oh gosh, as you may or may not know, I started my schooling way back in the 1970s in Walled Lake schools. And I think during that time, my parents, my mom in particular, became active in the school. She was really active as a PTA president. She was active as just a mom, engaged with school every day. But eventually, when I got to, it was about 5th or 6th grade, she got a job in my school way back at Oakland Park Elementary in Walled Lake. And she worked in a special services classroom right across the hall from my classroom. So I begged my teacher to come, let me go back and forth into the classroom and volunteer when I could. And, from there, I think, that's how things started with me. I started to connect with kids and working with kids, and really found enjoyment with that, especially those kids with special needs. And then because my mom was so involved at school, she had lots of teacher friends. So, I grew up knowing a lot of my own teachers and a lot of my mom's friends as teachers. So it was just kind of a natural fit for me to grow up and I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I graduated from high school. I was going to go to Eastern and I was going to become a teacher because that was kind of my destiny, I guess.
So right now, we need so many educators to go into the field. It's a very challenging time, but even more so, we need male teachers. What advice would you give to people considering going into education?
Wow. I was very fortunate at the time when I was hired in. They were looking for guy teachers or male teachers, and it was, pretty difficult actually, though, to get jobs. You're right, though, there's such a shortage right now. I think my advice would be to go above and beyond, and really know what you're in for as a teacher. It takes a lot of dedication. All jobs do in one way or the other, but you're going to be touching the lives of so many people in your career. And you got to go into it really realizing that it is not a 9 to 4 job every day. And I really truly believe that. I always tell my, the student interns and the young teachers that I helped mentor and guide, do everything you can above and beyond, because, it's so important. And you know what? Our kids are watching and they're listening to what you do, and they will notice those things right off. And so will other people, as they're hiring and things, they're going to be watching for those dedicated people. So I think, going above and beyond is really important. Doing whatever it takes is super important. That would be my advice.
You're entering your career after one of the most challenging years that I'm sure you probably have ever experienced as an educator. What lessons do you take away from the past year?
Wow, so many. The pandemic has changed the world in so many ways, and education especially. What I have learned is a number of things. Number one is all of us need to slow down a bit. Our lives are hurried. We have to have everything fast and now. What I've learned is that's not always the case, is that everything does not have to be so hurried in our world, especially with kids with parents and teachers. That's one thing I've learned is we need to slow down a bit. Another thing I've learned is that kids are, I've always known it, but kids are the most resilient creatures, and we as adults need to learn from them a lot more. And I think that's what I've learned is that even though kids have been back and forth with online learning and in-person learning, they are super resilient. I think we've also learned that online learning is not going away. And there are so many things within the realm of online learning that we have learned, our teachers have learned, I have learned, parents have learned, and kids, that my hope is that we don't lose that learning that we have gained. The way we do business in schools has always been, one way, in person. We go to meetings, we travel from place to place, but we've learned so much about how we do business in schools, and that's something else I think we've learned, that we could even be better when things get back to normal, with what online learning and parenting and teaching has taught us.
Yeah, we've been incredibly lucky that we've gone through the pandemic and the technology age that we're living in right now. Because could you imagine if it was back in the day and you had the rotary phone?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So there are blessings in all of this.
Absolutely. And it's pushed us to learn ourselves more and to think out of the box and make mistakes. I always say fall forward, make mistakes, fall forward, but learn from those things. I think we've all become more resilient that way too. And we've also learned that, we have to give each other grace in all of this, because of that learning. Grace to our parents who are learning to be teachers at home, grace to our teachers who are, taking on new technologies and new ways of doing their work, and grace to our leaders, also out there. So that flexibility, grace, and patience are the three big things I think we've all learned.
For more than 30 years with the Walled Lake School District, I'm sure
Yes.
it was like a roller coaster ride at times, full of highs and lows. What were some of the highs for you?
Oh gosh, I think all the way, I think it was 33 years in total that I was there in Walled Lake. But, as you know, I was a kid there. And I think to me, the high points have always been the kids and working with so many different kids. Being there 33 years, I've had the opportunity to move into different positions and work in different capacities. I've been in over 8 buildings in Walled Lake, and Walled Lake is one of our bigger districts. So one of the highlights for me is always has been the kids. But when I was a media specialist for about 7 or 8 years in the middle of that 33 years, I was able to be creative, and do simulations with kids, and those were in the best of times when we were funded well in schools. We had the people to do what we needed to do. I was able to use that creative side of me. A highlight was when I taught 3rd and 4th grade, and able to teach with some really great colleagues. And I was able to, in all of those 8 buildings, I was able, one year I was able to jump on board to the high school, which I never thought I would do. I thought I would always be an elementary guy, and totally took me out of my box. But I was able to help the principal then, Janelle McGuire, and several others open up a brand new building, Walled Lake Northern, where they trusted me in starting the media program for that building. But even more fun for me was starting with their first musical production there. I directed and just staged their first big musical there on their stage. And what was really funny is when we opened that building, the stage wasn't even there. The seats weren't even there. We were building that school as we were living in it. I've had some really, another big highlight was being able to open Pleasant Lake Elementary back in 1990. And that was a brand new school at the time. But what I've learned again through that is that no matter what journey I took through those 8 buildings or these 33 years, it's for me, it's about the people. And that's always been my mantra, is about people. I've been in the most beautiful buildings and schools. And I've been in the kind of the least attractive or the oldest schools, yet it's bricks and mortar is what I've learned. And it's really the people and the culture of the building that really drives what we do at school. And I miss that, actually, that those people, in this first week of retirement, that's what I'm missing the most, are the kids and that daily interaction, and my teachers and my parents. I've really tried to, create strong, lasting, deep relationships with those folks. So
what's next for you? What's retirement look like?
Gosh, I told you a little bit, I love to be creative, so, I always talk about joy. I talk about things that bring you joy. Well, things that bring me joy are being creative. I'm a former performer. I was a singer and dancer and did a lot of stage work and musicals and plays and stuff. So I'd like to get back to that. I don't know what it's going to look like. Maybe it's some small cabaret shows or something to dig deeper into my musical talent again, in that creativity. I love dogs, and animals. So I'd love to volunteer and do some work with training dogs and working with animals. Perhaps it's a therapy dog program out there, or perhaps it's just, working at a local shelter. I'm a runner, so I like to be physically fit all the time and try my best at it. But I would like to just work out more and be more physically fit, and I love to garden as well. So and that's always been my trouble, is I've got so many things I enjoy doing, but this time now that I have will let me kind of dig back there. I love to travel also, and I know it's a difficult time right now for traveling, but that'll come. I'm hopeful, but those are some things that fill my bucket. So I'm looking forward to those things.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you get bored, you can always come work in my backyard, because I definitely have a black thumb.
Okay.
You can always come help train our dog, because she's a rescue. And while she's getting a lot better, she still has some issues. We've had to take her to doggy training. It's been an adventure. And plus, if you could teach her to run with you too, so that when I try to run with her, she doesn't, take me that way and that way, but she's like 65 pounds. So
That's right. And remember, a tired dog is a good dog. That's what I always tell people. A tired dog is a good dog.
Well, I am certain that retirement is going to be great for you.
Thank you.
And like they say, once a performer, always a performer. So I'm sure it will take you no time to get back to what you love. But for all of the people over at Walled Lake, I'm sure that they are sorry to see you go, but they wish you the best as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time with me today. I just want to give a shout out to everybody in Walled Lake. They've been great. I can't tell you what a wonderful journey it's been over 33 years as an employee, but as a kid growing up. And that's my hope moving forward, is that Walled Lake continues to do what they're doing, putting kids first. We talk about every child every day in Walled Lake is our motto, and I truly have tried to live into that every day. And that's my hope, is that moving forward with everything that's out there going on, is that we continue to focus on every child, taking them where they're at and moving them forward, because they all come to us at different places and spaces. So I hope Walled Lake, I miss you guys, but keep taking care of our kids, because they are so special.
Well, we wish you the best in retirement as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jeff Drewno with us. He was the principal at Dublin Elementary School, just retired. And so the best wishes to him. We're going to take a quick break here in the Megacast. When we come back, we'll be speaking with the American Red Cross.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful, because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful, michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
I want to say thank you for taking time out of your Tuesday to tune in to the Oakland County Megacast. You know, the American Red Cross of Michigan provides services to more than 9 million residents across the state, and the need for help is greater now than ever before. With us now on the Megacast, Lynn Foster. She's the regional CEO. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ronnie, for this opportunity.
I recently saw a news story talking about the need for plasma. Is that still the case here in Michigan as well?
Ronnie, it absolutely is. The need for convalescent plasma is essential and critical to folks who have a current case of COVID, and it really just gives their immune system that little extra boost. So absolutely, the need is ongoing.
Yeah, because do you think that, they're in the middle of the crisis, talking about donations, it was in all of the news headlines, but now that has shifted, that focus has shifted to the vaccine. Does that take away, do you think, the attention of people and the need for plasma here in the United States?
Well, hopefully it doesn't, because we know the number of cases is continuing. And we just hope that all listeners, and especially those who have experienced COVID themselves and have a documented case and are healthy now, would consider just rolling up their sleeve to help save a life. And they can do so in a very impactful manner by donating their convalescent plasma.
So I was just talking to my girlfriend about donating blood, and I will say needles make me queasy. And one of the things, what is the process for people right now if they do want to donate blood? Are they tested for COVID? How does that work?
Yeah, so how it works, Ronnie, it's very simple. The easiest way is to go online at redcrossblood.org and type in your zip code, and you'll get a list of all blood drives near you, near your zip code. And you can pick a location close to you and an appointment time that's very convenient. And then the process itself is very simple. From the time that you arrive at the blood donor site until the time you leave, it's about an hour or so not very much time. And there'll be some health screening questions that you'll be asked. But the main point that I want to make is it's very safe to do so. In fact, I just donated blood last month, and I want to assure everyone that upon entry, your temperature's taken. Everyone is wearing masks. We are following all safety protocols, wiping down and sanitizing all equipment. The blood donation beds are socially distant apart from one another. And probably, the worst part is just getting that needle stick in the arm. And then the blood starts, flowing, and it's all good. And then at the end, to top it all off, a little juice and a cookie, and you're set to go.
That's the best part, the end part as well. With that though, like once they do the test and it shows that individual does have antibodies, maybe they had COVID and they didn't know, because we do know so many people were asymptomatic during this time. Could those people then get plasma?
They absolutely can. So what we ask is we are testing all blood donations for the antibodies. So you'll be notified about 2 weeks after your blood donation, whether your blood donation tested positive or negative for the antibodies. And then what you can do is, if you would like to donate your convalescent plasma, is to go back online and schedule a convalescent plasma donation. And the steps are right there, and it will take you through what you need to do. But all blood donations, whether you've had COVID or not, are being tested for the antibodies, just because we know there is such a critical need right now. So the Red Cross is investing in that antibody testing so that we can help those who are experiencing it right now.
I recently saw an ad with the NFL. The Red Cross is partnering with the NFL right now to try to get blood donations. How does having such a huge platform help with the end result of getting people in to donate?
Well, the American Red Cross has just really, truly enjoyed a wonderful partnership with the NFL for a number of years. And during the month of January, which also happens to be National Blood Donor Month, we're partnering with the NFL to help with awareness, to help get that word out across the country. And of course, everyone's watching the big games right now. And what is really special, I think, is a little extra incentive for donors to come out and donate blood.
So one of the things for so many people, they associate the American Red Cross with donating blood, but you also do so many other things as an organization. Can you fill in our listeners and our viewers about some of the other programs with the American Red Cross?
Oh, absolutely. Every single night across Michigan, and especially here in Southeast Michigan, we are responding to home fires. So every morning, I know exactly how many home fires we responded to. I get the morning report. And what most people don't realize is that is all done through our volunteer network. The mission of the American Red Cross cannot happen without the enormous help of our fabulous volunteers. But if you have experienced a home fire or another tragedy of some point, perhaps a flooding. Of course, we know that Michigan experiences flooding in the spring. The Red Cross is there helping, giving those virtual hugs right now, providing assistance, and then also helping our military families as well, whether veterans or active military service members and their families, often through emergency communication, either where they're deployed or back here to the United States. The Red Cross is there helping our military families as well.
I've been on countless scenes through the years, and I will say the American Red Cross, always amazing. You're out there at some of these house fires, and it could be the most desperate times, or big fires too, warehouse fires, and not only providing the assistance to put people up in hotels in those first few days following a fire, but also helping out all the first responders, and I will say the reporters as well, by providing, hot coffee or snacks, things of that nature, because when you get stuck on some of these scenes, you're out there for hours, and people forget these are volunteers that are being called out of their bed in the middle of the night to go help. How is the volunteer program doing right now? Do you need more volunteers?
Well, we can always use more volunteers, certainly, Ronnie, and we always encourage, and we are always actively recruiting more volunteers. And one way that you can do that, again, is to go to our website, and we really try and match what a volunteer would like to do with one of our programs. Certainly there's a need to deploy here locally, and within the last week in Southeast Michigan, we have opened up 2 shelters, and we have 2 disaster response operations going on because of multifamily fires that have happened right here in Southeast Michigan the last few days. Certainly, sheltering, helping in our shelters, helping with meals, and just really helping with that care and comfort. Because when you've experienced a home fire, you just really don't know what to do next. So we have a program in place, including experts in mental health, because you have just experienced something extraordinary that none of us want to do, but your physical health, your mental health, and connecting you with community partners to help is what the American Red Cross does every single night.
You guys do so much good in our communities. I will say I was really surprised, going back, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but during Hurricane Katrina, we were able to follow an American Red Cross crew that it consisted of volunteers from the local area that went down into the disaster areas, and they're leaving the comfort of their home and their families and going down to disaster areas to help days on end to provide the help and the need for so many people that have lost everything. But I was really surprised that there's training that they have to go through. You don't just sign your name up. Can you tell us about some of that training?
Sure, absolutely. So absolutely, from the standpoint of, we want to make sure that if you deploy, whether locally or nationally, and I tell you, those national deployments are long hours and tiring, but our volunteers want to do this. They are giving up their personal time, their personal vacation time, taking time away from their family and friends to do this. But we always want to make sure that, one, that you're safe. Safety is our number one priority, of course. And two, that no matter what position you're serving in, that you are well trained. So there are a number of courses that we will absolutely help train you up in to make sure that you feel well prepared, so that when you arrive on site, you know exactly what to do, you feel comfortable, and you'll be, one of the great joys is meeting other Red Cross volunteers from across the country doing the same work that you're doing.
So with us right now, Mary Lynn Foster, she's the regional CEO with the Michigan chapter of the American Red Cross. Mary Lynn, just a few more minutes with you here on the Megacast before we let you go. Anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you want the public to know about you and your team and how you're doing during this time?
Well, first and foremost, I really just want to thank you, Ronnie, and the entire show for having us on and bringing that awareness to all listeners and viewers from the standpoint of the American Red Cross throughout the pandemic has never closed. We are first and foremost an essential business, and we're there night and day, 24/7. We don't stop for holidays or pandemics or football games, but we are there to serve the mission of preventing and alleviating human suffering. So we encourage anyone who may be able to volunteer to please consider doing so. If you're healthy and able to roll up your sleeve to donate blood, please consider doing so. And of course, you know, this all takes money, financial means to do so. So if you're able to make a donation, please consider doing so. And just from the bottom of all of our hearts, right here in the Michigan region, we can't do what we do without you, and just extend our deepest gratitude.
Mary Lynn, before we let you go, how is it going right now when it comes to donations, especially on the corporate side?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's been a struggle. Honestly, we've not been able to meet with our corporate partners. We're meeting this way through Zoom calls. And of course, our corporate partners have had to furlough employees, have had to perhaps temporarily close, and have had to defer blood drives for us as well. But we're so fortunate that the American Red Cross is there each and every day. You know, our corporate partners are doing everything within their power to help us out financially, but they're having a hard time as well. So of course that extends to us, and so we're always reaching out to more corporate partners, asking for their support, knowing and hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, we'll get on the other side of this and in the near term and can be back, you know, together again in person in a safe manner.
Hey, you just touched on something that I didn't even really think of until you mentioned it, is so many of these blood drives did take place in the workplace. You know, it wasn't uncommon to have the American Red Cross in the building to be able to donate maybe on your lunch break, or businesses would allow their employees a few extra moments to go donate. So how has that shifted the focus on where you're holding some of these blood drives?
Well, we've had to get really creative. You know, initially, think back to March when businesses had to suddenly close. for the safety of their own workforce, of course, we had to, come to the community and reach out to additional partners and say, gosh, can you help us? Every 2 seconds. So every minute that we're talking here, 30 people need a blood donation across the country. So the need is constant. The American Red Cross supplies over 40% of the nation's blood supply. So we have just had to get really creative and, just continue to ask and reach out through community partners. And we've been fortunate that we've been well received. But also, our blood drives are socially distant. So we're not able to have as many collections in a normal space as a regular space that we normally would have. So that's presented an additional challenge. And that's why during the month of January, the weather always isn't cooperative. It's a quieter time. So the need for blood is constant. And really just appreciate this opportunity to come on and let listeners know that, if you're able to donate blood, the need is there. And we would be so appreciative if you're able to roll up your sleeve and give a blood donation.
Yeah, because that's one thing we can't do virtually is donate our blood.
That's right. Absolutely.
So quickly before we let you go, do you want to share the website again for people who want to get involved or maybe to try to find one of those latest blood drives?
Absolutely. It's very simple. It's redcrossblood.org. So you can just go on the website, type in your zip code, and you'll see all of the blood drives that are close to you, and you can pick a appointment time that is most convenient for you.
Well, Mary Lynn Foster, we so appreciate your time.
Ronnie, thanks so much.
Well, and Happy New Year to you. Let's hope that 2021 brings an end to the pandemic.
Absolutely. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, and same to you and your team as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, our last guest of the day will be speaking with the Catholic schools, members from a Catholic school. How's it been for some of the private schools here in Metro Detroit? This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test, and now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local. Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Just about 20 minutes left here in the Tuesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. As a reminder, you can always catch us on civiccentertv.com. And if for any reason you were unable to catch today's show or any of our previous shows and the interviews as well, you can always find them on civiccentertv.com. You could just go to the Megacast for full show episodes, or you can also just go to the on-demand section to try to review some of the previous interviews as well. So we've been talking at great length over the past several months with various public school officials during the COVID-19 crisis and how they've been dealing with the pandemic. But what is it like for students at the private Catholic schools? With us now on the Megacast for the very first time, we're excited to bring in Brother Ken Kalinowski. He's the principal over at De La Salle, and then we'll have the president on in just a moment as well. Brother Ken, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me, and welcome to De La Salle Collegiate.
Thank you. I'm really interested in trying to talk and get your perspective on the COVID-19 crisis and how things are going over there at the school. Are you open for in-person learning right now?
We are. We've been open for in-person learning all throughout this year until the governor issued the mandate in mid-November. So then we had to go virtual, and we stayed that way all the way to Christmas. We came back the 1st of January, and our parents, our staff, our students, I've said all year, I've never seen a group of happier students just to be in school. Honestly, you know, anything you do for them, you hear, the faculty will tell you, we hear thank you a lot more. We hear, my theme for the school year, as I started, this year is my first year as principal here at De La Salle, I said with COVID-19, this is the year of faith-filled flexibility. And it really encompasses that whatever is going to happen, we have to trust in God's providence that as long as we're doing the best that we can for the students that we serve, then we have to be flexible. And we have to realize that we're all in this together. COVID-19 has hurt every aspect of our society. You know, right now the restaurants and bars and stores are still hitting it. Public schools. My sister teaches in a public school. And she is, you know, she sees her students 1/4 each day in person. Here at La Salle, we have what we have purposely done is we have split all of our classes and use every possible bit of space. We made our cafeteria a classroom, our band room a classroom, even our gym was a classroom for a while. And we've been able to have the separation and make sure that everything is safe. And so our enrollment, if anything, in the beginning of August, you know, we were wondering where we were going to wind up, and we just picked up another 3-4 boys today as we begin the second semester. People want, I like to say, not only a Catholic education, but they want it in person. And we provided that safe niche.
If we can go ahead and bring in Larry Rancilio right now. He's the president over there at De La Salle. Thank you for being with us for this conversation as well, President.
You're welcome. You can call me Larry.
Larry, so as someone who is the president of the school, what is it like to go into some of these decision-making times and knowing that COVID-19 is in our community, people are dying, but having to make those decisions about in-person learning and putting the procedures and the protocols in place to make it a safe environment?
You know, Ronnie, it's funny you asked that because in the beginning, back in the summer when we were talking about these things, it was an unknown. I mean, we really did not know what was going to happen. So we took, as Brother Ken said, everything that the CDC and our local health department said, this is what we need to do. You know, the social distancing, the masks. We've been lauded in terms of the procedures that we put into place. It was a 40-page procedural booklet that we put together. And then when I rolled it out to the teachers, got questions from them, but we still, when we started, we didn't know what was going to happen. We literally thought 10, 15 days, maybe we're going to have something. Well, we went 52 uninterrupted days until the in school, until the governor put the pause on the school without an incident, with no contractions internally. And we only had 4 kids, but one was the same family, so 3 instances internally. So we knew after about a month or so that we were doing things the right way. When nothing happened, where a lot of these other schools were getting shut down, we got good kids. I mean, as Brother Ken said, I mean, these boys, and teachers that want to be here, so they'll listen. I mean, we have the occasional, mask down, hey, put mask up and those type of things. But we were nervous. I mean, because it was an unknown. We feel a lot more comfortable now. When the governor came out with that pause and the lawsuit came into play that Mann's put together, and you might we're part of Mann's. So we were actually prior to that looking at what do we want to do, because is there something that we want to do through the court system, because we want our kids back in school. Our parents were calling us because we really showed that we're doing things the right way.
And so with that too, Larry, where is the lawsuit? Where does it stand right now? Has it been dropped because students are back in?
What happened, there was initially we filed for an injunction, and that got dropped because the governor took the pause off. But there's still a court case, there's still a hearing, and it's really separations church and state, with regards to allowing us to come back to school. I mean, our contention though, Ronnie, was not the separation of church and state. We like that, we like to make our own decision. But when we went into that lawsuit, we brought because I had our attorneys take a look at this stuff. Ours was not the constitutional separating church and state. Okay, that helped us. Our angle was we're doing things the right way. We're showing kids can be in school, people can be in school, people can be in this institution if you're doing things the right way and not get things or not get anything contracted. So although we're a part of the lawsuit, and if we win or when we win, it'll be good for us. Us walking into that or going into it was from a different theory or looking at it differently.
So Larry, as part of this conversation, and the discussion also has to do around some of the funding for the schools. Now, we do understand that you're a private school. So for the families that can afford it, you are a great option. But what about the families that can't afford attending a school such as yours?
Well, the beauty of our school, Ronnie, is we've always told families if your son wants to come to school here, we'll find a way to make it happen. And now we have a financial aid process that they need to go through. But if they qualify, I mean, that's part of our charism of the school and the foundation of this institution. So we don't want a family not to take a look at us because they feel tuition is a hindrance. And that's what our St. John Baptist de La Salle, who is our founder, that's how he built his schools in France. So, we need to get that message out so families will take a look at us, because sometimes they shut us off and say, hey, well, I can't afford that. Well, we don't want that to be the case. And we've got some great alums and great donors and that help out. I mean, we give over $2 million of assistance every year, as well as, I mean, really even more, because we discount our tuition anyway. It costs us a lot more to educate a kid than what our tuition is anyway. So but it is a hard thing. I mean, it's still difficult.
Brother Ken, if we can bring you back into the conversation, how has learning changed during COVID-19 for the students?
Well, I think, everyone says the new normal, but the boys really enjoy what we're doing. We have split every class. There is not one class larger than, I'm going to say, anywhere from 15 to 18, where in the past you might have a class of 30. Because we've kept the social distance 6 feet away from everyone, there's a lot more individual attention, and we've utilized every space in the building. Not one faculty member, as we all know with the pandemic, it has been hard for any business to maintain all their staff. De La Salle made a commitment that not one faculty member was displaced. So we've used everybody to teach, and we've also changed our class periods, where instead of an 8-period day, the boys have 4 classes, 4 80-minute periods with lunch in between, and then the next day 4 80-minute periods, so that it lessens any kind of social contact, going from room to room. We want to make sure every desk is, thoroughly cleaned and sanitized. The locker rooms, no offense to anyone who knows anything about boys in locker rooms, usually smells bad wherever I've been. But these have been the cleanest locker rooms in the history of a school year, because, everyone has done everything preventive to make sure things are clean, things are sanitized. And as Mr. Rancilio said, the students are just anything we've asked them to do. They're just happy to be here. And I think one thing parents, and not that they haven't in the past, but I think with a lot of the homeschooling and the virtual, parents have realized that teaching is a hard job. Trying to teach your own can be, oh my gosh, and maintain your job and everything. So there's a lot more appreciation for the teaching profession. And I think the students realize that, especially when we had the pause. We had that pause in November, and we went virtual. And I would pop into every single teacher's class virtually just for comic relief. But the idea just to see, boys learning at home in their pajamas, in the sweatshirt, it's not a good look, and what are they getting? What are they missing? By being in school, you're able to have your labs. You're able to have just contact with each other. And as of this Friday, us going to the state football championship, which we thank the state of Michigan for letting football continue, because I truly believe things are safe in the sense as long as people are doing smart things. Our boys are being tested for COVID 3 times a week. So we have not had these issues where people have said, hey, what if? Well, what ifs haven't happened here, and we've been very blessed.
I was just about to ask you about some of the extra activities, because for so many people, school really is about the social activities. And while you are there for an education, it is also an important part of the education as well. Has that taken any type of step back during the COVID-19 pandemic for your students?
I think all of us would agree it has. And as my theme with the faculty and Mr. Rancilio has reiterated time and time again, our boys are only 15, 16, 17 in their lifetime. And so as much as we can have a normal school year for them. So our robotics team, we've had robotics come in on Saturdays. We had over 35 boys show up just to build robots because they're with their friends. We have every year a Jeopardy tournament after school. That has continued. Model UN, mock trial. So we haven't been able to do the field trips. And of course, people say, hey, what about prom? And we have to look and wait and see what Macomb County and the health department allows. And no one can predict where we'll be with the COVID virus, but I keep thinking things are getting better. So that will open more and more things up. But if we all stay positive, I'm one of those that the glass has half full instead of half empty.
So Larry, if we can go back to you, when the governor announced that she wanted all school districts to return to some type of in-person learning by March 1st, what was your initial thought to that? Because you were fighting to stay in school.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, I think it's great for the kids. I think it's great for the communities. And if we can get, Brenny, to go back from what you said to ask brother about the extracurriculars, and this will bring me into what you were just talking about. That's what these kids need. I mean, you can get education anywhere. I mean, wherever there's a good teacher, kids can get an education. It'll be brought to them. We do a great job of educating kids, but I think the environment is really what we really what our school is all about. And so when you take away some of that environmental stuff, I had some town hall meetings back in the beginning of the year with some of the parents via Zoom, and we did one in the prior to the 25 people in the gymnasium. And I got a lot of good feedback. But one of the feedbacks that the parents talked about is that connection, and can we do some things for the boys outside of school, because they're only seeing 50 or 60 kids where they normally see 200 kids, because what Brother Ken said, we extended our periods, there's less flow in the hallway. So when she said, you need to have some type of in-person learning, I thought, man, this is great for education and better for the kids. I mean, I think they need that. So we need those extracurricular activities, and we're getting very creative. We're trying to get creative in terms of how we do some of the social things with the boys. I mean, the things that happened over the course of the last 2 months that are limiting our time together has hurt us, but that'll expand a little bit. Hopefully after February 1st, we can do some things too. But, things like the play, things that those types of activities. Our band did a concert for Christmas, and we had them spread out in the gym. I mean, it was crazy how far away, but it still sounded great. But you know what? It's something that they looked forward to every year. They had masks on unless they were playing, but it was all, and they had 2 guests, me and the guy filming it, but that's all they could have, and that was the sad part for parents. Now we taped it, but I thought, boy, this, and the other thing that I saw is that interaction Brother Ken talked about. We had some distance learners, Ronnie, that decided that decided because of family situations, they stayed home in the first semester. Well, a couple of them came back in November because they saw things were going well. And what we saw is not two things we saw. One, that the kid was happy to see their friends. But what we also saw was how many of their friends reacted when they came. Like, we didn't realize how many kids missed that kid, you know, and so that's what you get. And that's what, you know, again, this our institution's all about, is those relationships as much as anything else. But that's any high school. I mean, and that's why it's good for these kids to get back. So I know some of the teachers are a little nervous, but I can contend here that if you follow the guidelines, you know, you will be safe. You know, that's a big thing.
And with that, we do know there is the vaccine rollout and teachers are eligible right now. Have members of your staff been able to get those vaccines?
Yeah, Brother Ken, you want to comment?
Only a very few. I know Mr. Rancilio is a lucky man. He's on a list.
Get my first one tomorrow.
But, you know, I think right now everyone's having the same problem that you hear in the community, that trying to get a hold of the health departments and all that is almost like winning the lottery. And there's only so many viruses, vaccines available. So unfortunately, when someone tells me, hey, I'm going to be out tomorrow because I have to go get the vaccine, I'm like, good for you. You know, I don't want you to miss a school day, but I'd rather you get the vaccine. But and if you know anyone, please put me on the list. You know. So.
You know, we've been encouraging our any staff member to get it ready. I spoke to Mark Ackle yesterday, the county exec, for quite a while about, hey, how can we do that? Can we get our teachers? And he said, Larry, good luck. He said, I am more than willing to help. I'll bring someone there, but we just don't have the vaccines. I mean, they're ready. There's 300 and some odd thousand people in Macomb County that are eligible, and they had 4,000 shots this week, 4,000 available this week. So obviously there's some issues with regards to that, but we had a teachers meeting on Friday. We encouraged, you know, them to get it.
So we have heard from school districts throughout this entire pandemic, they all pretty much said, we know schools are not the cause of the spread. However, we can't control what's happening outside of the school. What's happening at your school that has allowed you to contain the virus and not have it spread through the halls of your school?
Well, a couple things. First, the school put in thermal cameras in every entrance. So the boys have to go through a thermal entrance. We also have an app each morning that it's called Clear to Go. They have questions to fill in. If 3 or 4 questions on how do they feel, do they have a fever, etc. If they answer yes to anything, then right away stop. You know, wearing a mask is not an option in the building. You must wear a mask. You're seating socially distant. Teachers have plexiglass in front of their desks if they feel that they need to stay there. And we have hand sanitizer stations throughout the building. So everything that we've done as far as, you know, we have a trainer on staff, medical staff, every morning at 7:30 till 8:30 each day to check if one of the boys comes in sick or he's not feeling well. So it's kind of like we've been going through, and the boys have been smart because they realize that if you get sick, you're not only affecting yourself, but, you know, there will be a ripple effect because we will have to look at who were you in contact with. And so I think people are just thinking smart, not to be mean to adults, because we as adults are sometimes a little more stubborn, or we're used to not changing. But when you tell a high school boy, this is what you have to do, usually they're like, okay, thank you, you know, and you don't have these issues.
And our students do listen. Real quick on that too, Ryan, but I'll just give you the example of our football coach, because throughout the whole course of things, what he did, because I would go to some practices and listen, and did a great job. Coach Roan would talk to these kids about, remember, when you go home, you know, you're affecting our whole season, your program. So when Brother Ken sends information out on a weekly basis, he reminds people that, you know, over the Thanksgiving holidays, you know, so when we had the couple kids that were out and was because of a hockey practice, and we contract traced it. And then the awakening to that was these kids realized, oh, if I do something outside and I'm not careful, it's going to come back. So things like that have helped us. I mean, we have just great kids. I mean, that'll listen, but you know, I think that's the big thing from what you're saying, that we continually also counsel them that what they're doing outside these, you know, walls also affect what goes on in here. And they're pretty good about that.
Well, Brother Ken and Larry, we so appreciate your time, and we want to say good luck at the state championship as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go
Thanks,
Pile.
Frank. Thanks for having us.
That's going to wrap it up for the Oakland County Megacast.